Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the automated velocity channel. We told you that this was going to happen, and we did it, and we are doing it. We're going to continue to do it. Listen, we appreciate every one of you that have told us about your woes, how the banks did you this way and did you that way. We've gotten a lot of you off of the bank's plan, and we are not done. We are just starting, and we are just beginning. And so, right now, we want to introduce to you. You already know about Rick, the Money Max guy. You already know about the big fish in the ocean, right? How that I'm the small fish, he's the big fish. Well, guess what? We also have someone on his level as well, and that is Miss Karen Parsons. Let me tell you something. She has a lot to say. I'm not going to steal her thunder because she's going to let you know about her story. She's going to be letting you know about how she got into the debt elimination, how she loves canceling out all that interest, and she really knows what she's doing as well. Aren't you glad that you have connected with a bunch of folks that know what they're doing? I'm telling you, man, it's amazing. And it's not so much that we know what we're doing, it's just that we have gotten taught how to do it. Not only velocity banking, but we now have a solution, a more solid solution, a more systematized solution in automated velocity banking called the Money Max account. Listen, without further ado, Miss Karen Parsons, take it away, please.
Thank you. Appreciate that, CJ.
No
And I'll
problem.
tell you, I didn't start with velocity banking, but I sure have come around to it. That's neat. Thanks. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm from Dover, Delaware. Actually have 4 kids and 11 grandkids. My career was in occupational therapy in the medical field. Um, what started this whole journey was as a kid, I grew up in a family that did not believe in debt. They believed you should budget everything, and we did to the penny. And I just assumed everybody did that until I got married. And then I found out not the case. And my husband was a contractor, so our income was up and down and up and down. And so we ended up getting into debt. And you know that built over the years. And then about 30 years later, he decided to leave. And here I was, 50 years old, saying, uh-oh, what am I going to do now? And I was really fortunate at our church. They had a program, it was a 12-week work program that teaches basically the debt snowball. A lot of you may be familiar with it. And it works. I'm a testament to that. I got super diligent, but I call it the scrimping and scraping method. Because basically you just cut back on everything and you work lots of extra hours so that you can make it happen. And it was tough. I ended up having to go back multiple times to the program, and it was really crazy because every time you'd go, there'd be this big class of people, and each week it would get smaller and smaller when people found out the kind of commitment that they had to have. And not too much longer after that, I ended up getting injured and could no longer continue with my job. So now I'm looking like, okay, now what am I going to do with my future? And I was so grateful because a friend came and said, Karen, you've got to look at this program. And it was the Money Max account. And when I did, I was just blown away by the fact that, wow, this worked even faster than what I was doing. It was automated. I didn't have to have any spreadsheets. I didn't have to figure anything out. And most importantly, it was using multiple banking principles. It wasn't just one way to get there. So it was more effective. And the other thing that stood out the most was people didn't have to change their lifestyle. And I thought, man, that's something that people can do. But before I could consider, sharing this with others, it was really important to me to find out about the company. Like, what's their background in? Are they going to be stable? Are they going to be here forever for my clients and even for myself? Because I'm not a salesperson. And if I don't really believe in something, I'm not even going to share it. So I went into some deep research, and what I found was just so convincing. They started back in 2004. And actually, the guys who started it were mortgage brokers. And they kept seeing their clients coming back and refinancing and going deeper and deeper into debt. And they realized, how much this was hurting their clients. And they started to look worldwide. What kind of options are there? Because we've got to do something to solve it. And they really couldn't find anything that was efficient enough. So they got mathematicians and IT professionals together, and they came out with the first version of the Money Max account. They tested it on 400 families, and it went extremely well. So they took it across the whole United States. And you know what, CJ, that was really the first velocity banking, because it utilized the mortgage, and it was only worked on a mortgage, and you used a HELOC to pay it off. You had to have the HELOC to pay off the mortgage, and it was working great. They became highly recognized. If you're familiar with Ernst & Young, they were awarded by them and just really got a lot of attention for what they were doing. But then, and they grew tremendously. They were expanding very fast until 2008 and 2009 hit. Because when that happened, remember, nobody could get a HELOC. In fact, nobody could get a mortgage. All of a sudden, what are they going to do? And honestly, sales dried up. And our leaders, John and Scholar, they had a decision to make. Are they going to try to keep going forward, or maybe go back to mortgages, or do something else? But they're on a mission, and they're also men of faith, and they just felt that they needed to keep going forward. And I am so glad that they did, because they went back to the drawing board, put in millions and millions of dollars. And some of their goals were, they wanted this program not just to be able to work on a mortgage. They wanted it to be able to tackle all different kinds of debt. And now it does. But most importantly, they didn't want it to depend on that HELOC or an outside line of credit. So now it works with just your checking and savings account. And it works in all kinds of economic situations. They've upgraded it, and they've upgraded it to where it's like what CJ. I mean, it's just pretty amazing how it works for people. A couple other things that stood out to me that I think is neat, because it really helps people in all different kinds of situations, is it doesn't matter if they have a home or not. Maybe they're just getting out of school and they want to get rid of their school debt so they can get a good debt to income ratio and get into a home. It's absolutely great for that. It helps that homeowner who's trying to get their home paid off faster. It helps the investor who's wanting to build equity really quick so that they can leverage it out. Really can work for people in all kinds of different situations. So
Wow.
I'm just so grateful
Yeah.
that I ended up to make that decision to become an interest cancellation specialist, because I'll tell you, I have learned so much over the last 4 years of how important it is to have a guide, a financial track to run on.
Right. I was, and I don't mean to cut you off, but what really spoke to me was the fluctuations that you would experience, prior. And I was like, wow, well, some people do experience those fluctuations because of their job, because they are contractors, because there's a feast one month and then there's a famine the next. Boy, I tell you, those are challenging times, but is there something that can assist with those feast and famines so that it doesn't have to be that much famine?
I think that's one of the things I love about the Money Max account. I can't tell you how many people, we work with a lot of people who are like realtors, and their income is all over the board. So just whether you're commission based, it can be helpful. But we got into this just shortly before the pandemic, and there was a lot of famine at that time. And I remember several people who this program is what gave them the stability and the comfort of, okay, I know it's tough, but I can put my figures in and it's going to guide me. It's going to recalculate. It's going to constantly change no matter what the situation is, to keep me on track. And that's huge, because we're all going to have ups and downs. If you don't, you're really fortunate.
Right, right. Oh my goodness, that's so true. I found that if we have a plan, then we actually have a place to go versus just winging it. right? I actually remember being a load. I was a weapons load guy in the Air Force, with working on those F-15s, and we would go to load barn to load up the jets. And they had a saying, and that is, contrary to popular belief, when everything hits the fan, you're not going to resort to some superhero mode. You're going to resort to your training, and if you have zero training, if you don't know, if you can't load those missiles, like in our case, by muscle memory, because I remember when that stuff happened in September 11th of 2001. Boy, we were on the flight line, and guess what, there was no time for no, oh, we're gonna rise to the occasion, right? No, we fell back on our training, and it was muscle memory. That's why we loaded all those jets flawlessly with lives, right? And it was something to see that staying in practice. What what is the um benefit of having a plan, like the one with the Money Max account, having a plan versus just quote unquote winging it, or just scraping and scrimping here? What's the benefit of having a plan versus doing that, the scripting and saving?
That was so hard to stick to.
Mhm.
Life happens. And I can't tell you how many people were on that program with me and couldn't stick with it.
Right.
And I said I kept not sticking with it. You'd have to go back. And whereas this, it we tell people right off the bat, tell us what your lifestyle is today, include all the things you spend money on, because that's reality. That's how we live. We base our analysis on that. And then if you end up wanting to add more to it, great. But when life happens, there's two things I tell people they have to commit to if they're going to use this program. One is at least once a month, you need to go in and update it and just let it know what happened. And two, you need to be brutally honest with it. If you're not going to tell it, hey, you know what? I overspent this month, don't bother.
Right.
Like your velocity banking folks, you got to be honest, you got to work at it. But to have that automated, to take that stress out of constantly trying to figure it out and knowing it's got your back and it's mathematically working the most efficient way automatically, that's a big stress reliever for sure. Can I share with you
Yeah.
somebody this morning?
Yes.
This is a gentleman who called in. He wanted to talk because he sadly he was really sad about the fact that he had just gone into a debt settlement about 2 months ago because he didn't see any other way out. And the interesting thing was he has insurance policies that he knew he could use the cash value from, but he wasn't sure really how to do it. He has a HELOC that he wants to utilize, but he doesn't, it was close to maxed out, but he also didn't really know how to use it. He just didn't see any options, but he's been studying and he's been learning, but wasn't able to put the pieces together. And so we ran an analysis for him. And this morning, it was just so amazing because his attorney had told him he had about, I think it was 5 different debts, and he had quite a few more plus his mortgage, but about 5 debts that were in this settlement. And they told him that their goal was to have them totally paid off in 5 to 7 years. But there's no guarantee on that. It's just, that's their goal.
Mhm.
Guess what it came back at? This is his mortgage, all his debts. He's going to be totally debt free in 4.8 years.
What?
Yeah.
So
And
that's less than the 5 to 7
for those 5 debts.
for
And
those
that
5 debts.
is honestly a small percentage of his debts.
Wow.
We were blown away. It's like, this is so cool. He's saving over $250,000. And he was so ecstatic because he can't wait to go back and let them know because he's early in on this. It had started to affect his credit a little bit, but he's in a position that he's able, the contract is written in such a way he can stop it. and he's just going to go utilize this program. He will have to pay a couple extra months of, the amounts that he missed the last couple months. But he's like, makes total sense. I'm not going to destroy my credit. I'm going to be debt free so much sooner. And I think more than anything, he's excited about having that track to run on. He's now going to be able to use those instruments that he has. He's going to get the coaching from the company. He's going to get my support going down the road. He's
Wow.
ecstatic. That's the difference of having a plan versus, and he's a spreadsheet guy. I mean, he sent us, I was impressed with the spreadsheets. It's
Right.
not like, I mean, he's been working the numbers. He just couldn't get them to work. Now they're going to work.
Oh, so that's interesting that you would say that. Just couldn't get the numbers to work, but he's a spreadsheet guy, right? And not all of us can be IT professionals, right? IT support. Perhaps we're just learning how to work a computer, right? We know the basics. How how important is it to be somewhat savvy when you're talking about, this solution that helped this guy uh get to 4.8 years instead of the 5 to 7 years? Do you have to be really savvy on the computer? Do you have to put in some code or whatnot? What is that about?
If you had to be, I'd be in trouble. I've never been able to do what I do. So no. Um, I love the fact that you've shown people the
Right.
program. It looks like just an online checking account. From the front end for user, it's user friendly. You just have to literally go in. If you're paid weekly and you pay your bills weekly, you probably want to go in weekly. We have people who go in every day,
Mhm.
but once a month, you need to go in and let it know, okay, this is what really happened in my month. And you update very simply those
Mhm.
figures, and then it does the rest. And that's what I love about it. Not
Mhm.
only does it do the rest, but it takes in, whatever kind of principle we have. I use debt snowball,
Yes.
the debt avalanche, there's the velocity banking, there's infinite banking, there's all these different strategies, and they will work.
Mhm.
But are any of them most effective? I heard this example once, and I think it's so neat, CJ. Think about your debt snowball might be, if you were a builder, a contractor, that's your hammer.
Mhm.
Your debt avalanche, that's your saw. Your velocity banking, that's your, what else do you need?
Right.
Screwdriver.
Right.
You can be effective with each of those tools, but how much more effective when you have all those tools in your toolbox and you can pick whatever you need at the time you need it? Well, that's when you put in your information and say, this is what happened this month. My debts changed. It uses all those different tools
Yes.
and, and figures out what's most applicable for you this moment to help you accomplish your goal the fastest. And so, no, do we have to be savvy? You need to be able to get on a computer and you need to be able to update your numbers.
Right. Wow. Okay. Okay. That actually is a good analogy because I used to have, speed handle. We worked with ratchets and hammers and all of that, but it all came from a toolbox, right?
Mhm.
So, we wouldn't try to screw a screw in with a hammer, right? You screw in with a screwdriver, and that's good because that's what that the solution is. The Money Max account is. What do we need now, right? Versus, oh, let's just do this debt snowball. Well, wait a minute. We're talking about tons of debt here. It's just one tool, right? No, no. That I don't even think that's the age we're living in. Just one tool, right? We need to make sure that once we have a plan, that plan includes other aspects that will assist us in making the most of not having the interest go towards the bank, but bringing that interest towards us. And that's what I think it's basically all about. That interest that's going away. I've heard it said like this. I don't know if you've heard this, but those that don't understand interest pay it.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, they pay through the nose, Miss Karen. But those that do earn it. And those are a lot of our people who have actually went on to get the Money Max account and to plug those numbers in, and they've seen it. They've seen the numbers, and it's brought great relief to them. Go ahead.
What you were describing kind of reminds me of the gentleman this morning
Mm,
because he had different tools and he's been trying to figure out how to use them, but he didn't know how.
mm,
And now this, along with our coaching, is going to be able to help him use those tools effectively.
yeah, yeah. You really do. You really need a team, and that's why I'm glad as well. We have a team. We've got that support going on because the bottom line is, I don't know, if anybody out there received an education on how to massively, eliminate their interests, right? But I would venture to guess that you didn't, right?
Did
Not
we learn
growing up,
anything about finances growing up?
right?
From school.
Exactly, exactly. And so here's one that you can actually implement for yourself, and not only that, who else can you teach? Your children, your community. I mean, I'm teaching my children, like, hey, this is how money works. Even though they probably don't, because they're like 2 and 4, but they probably don't understand it all, right? But you would be amazed at what they pick up on. And so I'm like, hey, what about this? What about the other? And Rick, he's the same thing. He's talking about, I gotta leave my grandchildren a legacy, different things. And so how important is that? In the grand scheme of things, using this solution, how important is it that we now have a tool that we could help even our kids, our grandkids, and our community after us?
It's huge. First getting ourselves in a good place. Think about one of the things that really hit me with this program is our retirement, our future, our wealth building is totally locked up in the interest that we owe to the bank. And if we can get rid of that interest, now we can start building wealth. We can pass that along to our children and grandchildren, for one. But two, the principles. There's nobody that excites me more than when I'm working with a young person with the Money Max account. I'll give you an example of a college student.
Yes.
He doesn't even owe his student loans yet because he was still in school, did have a car payment, but he saw how this tool could really help him basically get on track, have a track to follow, have that GPS to guide him. And he got involved with the Money Max account. Actually, his car broke down and he was at the dealership to go buy another car. And he's trying to figure out, they're telling him it's going to be 7 years and this amount. He says, hold on. He gets his phone out. He puts it in his Money Max account and he figures out. He said, well, yeah, I'm going to be able to have this paid off. I don't know. It was like 2.3 years or something. He said, yeah, I can do it. He knew exactly how it was going to affect him. This is like a 20-year-old kid. He knew how it was going to affect him. He told the car dealer, the car dealers, he's figuring, he's what are you doing? So he tells them about it. But think about him now when the school bills are coming, they're going to be knocked out in several years instead of 20.
Mhm.
We're putting them on deferment, like how many people do. We're
Right.
paying the small amount that ends up their school loans are growing, and now they're trying to get in. I can't tell you how many people we've seen trying to get into a home that they can't. I'm sure you see it all the time. Their debt to income ratio, and many times it's those school loans,
Yep.
maybe the credit cards and other things because they don't know they shouldn't be using them.
Right.
But your kids, they're going to learn, they're never going to make those mistakes. And when we can get someone young to understand the right principles, they're going to avoid all
Right.
those tremendous mistakes that we made. They're
Wow.
never going to have their retirement, their wealth building locked up in the interest that they owe the bank. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Karen, that's amazing. I mean, how powerful is it? Because now you're getting questions asked all around the dealership. Because I mean, who wouldn't want somebody put together financially like that to where you can just type that number in, be like, oh, how much is it? Okay, what's the interest? Boom, and figure out, oh, okay, yeah, I can do it. I
Or,
wouldn't be
or
surprised if
even
that
better
same
yet,
dealership. would go back to him and be like, hey, what about, can we start, telling people about this? Because what it does is it helps everyone involved. Not only does it help out the dealership, but it also helps the people who need that car to know how to pay it off. And I think it's called a win-win scenario. Greg Keller, Gary Keller, I believe his name is, from Keller Williams. He has just a tremendous brokerage, and he has a saying: we want win-win-win scenarios where everyone wins, right? It's not a win-lose thing, but it's a win-win-win. And he believes in collaboration, right? Not so much necessarily as competition, but he also believes in interdependence. And so we learn this, and we look at the Money Max account. We look at that example that you just had of that young fella. Oh man, can we just highlight that? He was what, 20?
Mhm.
Oh,
Not out of college yet.
not out of college yet. And he's already,
Wow.
all right, here. Yeah, you know what? I can do it. I can be out of here in, not 7 years, but like 2 or 3 years. And let's get this.
You know what I think is even more important
Mm,
is could have told him, no, you better not do that. How many
right.
times have I know personally, I've made mistakes. I think back, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that.
Uh-huh. Right.
Have
Right.
the MoneyMax account where you can project before you make the choice. One of the things that stuck out when I first started working with people was somebody, they were planning, they already had their plans in place, and they were literally in the process of buying an RV because they wanted to start traveling. And they got the MoneyMax account. When they put it in, they realized, man, it's going to hurt us. I mean, it literally shows you're going to run out of money. And they
Hmm.
were going to run out of money. They put it off 6 months,
Hmm.
and then it was perfectly fine. What did that save them? Knowing that before they went into a purchase that was a mistake.
Right.
It wasn't that they couldn't do it. They just needed to get a little further ahead before they could do it. And now they're traveling, and they're not hurting where they
Right.
would have. And maybe they wouldn't have even been able to travel if
Right.
they made a mistake.
Well, see, that's the peace of mind aspect
Mm-hmm.
as well. I mean, and can you put a price on peace of mind? Can you put a price on going somewhere, and instead of hemming and hawing and making an emotional decision? Oh, I really want that car, because it's red, and right? Or, oh, well, I can take another job, or I can take a cut here, and I can scrimp and save, and I can eat beans and rice, and I can eat popcorn on certain days because I won't be able to eat anything else that day. And listen, these are real scenarios. It may sound like a joke. It's not. People are doing all kinds of things that's and let me tell you, if you are one that is scrimping and saving, are you eating the healthiest, right? And do you have that holistic type of regimen? Is it holistic? Because remember, you still got a body, right? You still got a mind that needs feeding. And so if you're scrimping and saving, but if you have a plan that says, no, 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 let's just move the money in a different way. Right? No, you don't have to. You listen, you can get a filet mignon actually, right? But
Okay.
yeah,
Not
you just have
everything.
to use yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just got to move the money, right? I say this: financial allocation. What is the key word there? Location. They have a saying in realty, and it's location, 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 right? Well, many times, what I didn't get taught was when it comes to your finances, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
Location, location, location. Where are you putting it? Are you sure you want to make just a minimum payment? Are you sure you want to make it on this date? Are you sure that's how much you want to put towards that? Why not be double sure and put it inside something that's tried and true, that's been tested by I don't know how many mathematicians, right? I read the story too, it was amazing. But that's where we're at. We got to make sure, and man, stop me if I'm, rambling on, but we got to make sure that we have a plan before we do anything. We have certified financial planners, and their place is great, right? But how much more would this, and as well as to realtors, as well as to lenders, how much more would this solution help their clients out? Have you been in a situation, Miss Karen, where you found out that you're more than just, fill in the blank? Let's say you're a contractor. You're more than just, let's say you're a realtor. You're more than just a realtor. You're more than just a lender. When you place the solution in front of your clients as applicable, have you noticed that they see you as something that's someone that's more than just that profession?
I think this tool in any professional's toolbox can make them a much more trusted advisor in whatever it is that they do. I,
Right,
no, I think that's huge,
right.
big difference. And I'll tell you, one of the things when we work with financial planners, one of the comments that I hear from them is we can help our clients to get a great plan. Then and they're all in, but then they go home and that shiny object, oh, I gotta go, and we get off track, and then they're afraid to come back and tell you we messed up. It's
Yes,
hard to stay on track day by
right.
day. So if they have this tool with their client, the client, okay, so if they get off track, that's where I said you got to be honest. You
Hmm.
tell it, I
Right,
screwed up.
right.
Okay. It's not going to yell at you. You just tell it the truth. It recalculates like a GPS does and say, okay, we got a little bit further distance to go, but
Right,
here's the best way to get there. So for that financial planner, it's the tool that carries their client to carry out what they've encouraged them to do.
hmm,
And in whatever career it is, whether it's that realtor, think about a realtor who's able to share this with their client. Their client now is paying off their debt in, 5 to 7 years, 10 years. They're going to be wanting to upgrade. They're going to be wanting to go into investment properties. And who are they going to be telling about it? All
right.
the friends,
Every
you know.
That's right. That's right. You know what I call them? I call them the realtors that do this, and I actually coined the phrase. I probably would have to go ahead and trademark this because I know as soon as I let this out, people are going to be like, "What?" You know, they're velocirealtors.
Lots of realtors.
Well, because when you think about velocity, you think about speed. And
Yeah.
when you are, faced with a situation, hey, I want to pay this down faster. Do you have, anything? Guess what? They show them, right, how to pay it off faster in as little as 5 to 10 years, right, with this solution, the Money Max account. And instantly in their eyes, they become, whoa, you're a Velocirealtor or a Velocilender or a Veloci, just put that prefix on because that's what they're helping them to achieve in their mortgage, their loans, whatever it is. They're helping to achieve velocity when they show them this solution, you know? And man, it's just amazing how you go from, you know, maybe a salesman to a trusted advisor.
Yes.
That's the bridge, right? That's the difference. You're looking at the finances, you're placing it on the screen in front of them, and they're seeing, well, wait, I uh I I think I can do that. Like one fella I was talking to not too long ago, I believe it was 2 days ago, we went over his situation and it was just unbelievable. He saved 41 years. Miss
Wow.
Karen, 41 years. And he didn't even have a mortgage. He was going to be he's going to be completely debt free in 2.6 years.
Wow.
And he's not making a whole astronomical amount, you know what I mean? But it's just the way he's moving his money thanks to the system, you know?
And that is so rewarding to be able to be a part of that, isn't
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. And what's even more rewarding is when the people are like, you know what? I see it.
it?
I
Mm-hmm.
see it and I'm going to commit to it, not for just me, but for my family, because they recognize, Miss Karen, that it's not just money that they're saving. They recognize, as in the case with the 2.6 versus the 43 years, they recognize that they are freeing up time and they're
Yes.
saving time as well. right? One ancient writing says, redeeming the time,
Mhm.
right? And so that's what they're doing. They're time collapsers. And when we present this in front of them, they're like, what? And that's when the questions just flow. Have you ever heard of people, asking questions, how can these things be? Oh, this is unbelievable. Well, I mean, what do you have to say to those people? Because I've had them like, man, this is unbelievable, and they continue to listen. But what do you say to those that are like, nah, this is too good to be true? It's unbelievable. There's no way you're able to take me from 43 years on the bank's plan to 2.6 years. How is this possible?
And we get that a lot, it's, that was my biggest thing was,
Mhm.
can this be real? You
Right.
know, how can it be? One thing that I say is look at the track record.
Mm.
We're in financial services. If we were doing something wrong, we'd have been shut down a long time ago. We've got a
Right.
19-year track record. We have lots of people who have had success on the program, and it is using with, let me turn the cards around. When you go into the biggest city and you look at those big, tall, pretty buildings,
Hmm.
what's on them? What
Like the
names are
Bank of America and
banks, right?
yeah, and yep. Uh-huh.
How do they get so wealthy?
Uh-oh. Other people's money?
Our money in interest. And those algorithms they have
Right.
that utilize that money to gain as much interest as they can. Now, those same algorithms are working. There's millions of lines of code working in the background. It's simple for me to use as a consumer, but in the background, it's those same banking algorithms that are making those banks wealthy. It's kind of turning the tables upside down and putting it in your back pocket to bring it back to you.
Right.
That's how it can work. It makes such a difference in people's lives.
Wow. Karen, man, thank you so much for spending time with us. I think that they got a mouthful and a brainful. And folks, thank you so much for also tuning in as well. We will be back and we're going to have more and more and more guests on as well. We appreciate Miss Karen Parsons for sharing her time here with us. Karen, we appreciate you so much. We appreciate what you do for people, what you do for your clients. Really, to make a living, right, freeing people is just the way to be. And why not free them financially, right? Why not get in there and eliminate as much debt as you can so you can build as much wealth as you can, right? And so thank you so much, Miss Karen, for that. We appreciate you, man. I'd love to have you back on it sometimes, when your schedule permits. And man, we just appreciate you. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. If you got any questions, that link right here is below. We'd love to answer them. We'd love to talk with you and schedule your consultation, free analysis as well. All right, folks, thank you so much. God bless and have a good night.
Thank you for the opportunity.